Hi, this is Pete Ekman with the RoboZone podcast. This is one of the episodes I've been so looking forward to since we announced it earlier this year. We have the Robonauts Team 118 with us. But before we get to those introductions, we're going to check in with John. John from Kettering, how are you doing for the GoPro Corner update? How are things going, John?
Things are going great, though we were delayed a little bit because of the snow. The teams in the center, maybe a few days behind and stuff like that.
There were weather events in Michigan and Texas.
Yeah,
so it wasn't just us.
But and I'm sure it wasn't just Michigan and Texas. It was throughout the eastern United States. So I'm sure there were many teams that were impacted. But it seems like, at least majority of the teams in there are comfortable with where they are, which is really important. And with the field we have, they get time to practice, to tons of prototyping. So I'm excited. I'm excited for week 0.
Yes,
because we do a week 0 at Kettering, and it's going to be interesting with all the time off and all the rebooted teams that are really rookies that are not rookies. So it's going to be interesting.
We're all rookies this year, sort of, in a way.
Kind of like that.
Yes, it's a more normal season, but it's not a true. It's going to take a couple years to get back into that, that groove that we are all in before COVID hit.
That groove.
So, yes, but without further ado, let's introduce our interviewees. Today we have Ryan and Ethan. Welcome, Ryan and Ethan.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for having us.
And I'm going like this because you guys are on both sides of me on my screen. So I see one over here and one over here. So Ryan, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ryan Stockton. I'm an alum of Team 118, co-lead of the Everybot program and current mentor for Team 118. During the day, I work as a robotics design engineer for lunar exploration rovers at NASA. That's what I do.
Ethan, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ethan Reed. I'm also an alumni of Team 118. I'm currently studying mechanical engineering at U of H, and I'm a co-op, work on various different things at the Johnson Space Center. And this year will be my first year kind of full-time mentoring the Robonauts team, and I'll be the drive coach this year as well.
Fellow drive coach. I can't wait to get back behind the glass this year.
Me neither.
Yeah, I have heart medication just in case. No, I'm just kidding. I can't wait. I think we're going to have a lot of fun this year. So first, thank you guys for making yourself available to come onto the podcast. One of the things that we want to talk about, and something that everyone talks about every year, is the Everybot. Now we welcome you and we want to know about your team, but we really want to know about the Everybot, and there's some little pieces in there. Me as a head mentor myself, we've built portions of the Everybot each year. We're only in our 5th season. Well, technically like our 3rd, 4th season with COVID, they're fuzzy math. But every year you guys come out with an amazing design that either wins or almost wins blue banners everywhere around the world. So there are so many questions I have for you. So the very first one, I'm just gonna come out. Who came up with the Everybot idea, period?
So I can answer that one. So the Everybot program actually started in 2014. And that was our robotics lead at the time with the school district, Louis Medina, our head coach, Lucian Junkin, and then Alan Gregory was also involved from Spectrum. And, the Robonauts kept growing. The team got bigger and bigger. And it's like, how do we get more students hands-on with robots and building a robot during the season on our team? And actually produce something. So the Everybot started in 2014 with the similar mission statement we have now. We're basically $1,000, but we've kind of refined the mission statement as we've gone along. But back then, through 2014, 15, 16, and 17, we would build the robot during the season along the 118 robot, blog about it on our website, and it was kind of a season-long thing. And we realized that wasn't really as helpful for teams as it could be. So in 2018, Ethan and I sat down with Lucian and we discussed, let's revamp the program. Let's do it the first week of the season. Robot in 3 days, that's a little too ambitious as far as what we want to produce. We want to produce, a high quality functioning robot. So 1 week seemed like a good timeline. And for a lot of us, that is, we go back to college then. So it's kind of a hard deadline. And then the documentation kind of follows after that first week. So we revamped the program in 2018. And that year there was about 44 Everybots, and that doubled to around 90 in 2019. And then we saw around 150 in 2020. And we'll see how many there are this year.
How do you know how many of them get built? Do they just reach
So-
out to
So,
you? or-
so I go in the past couple of years, and I look at the streams and what's uploaded on the Blue Alliance from every single event, and I watch the first about 30 seconds of every match for every team at the season, pretty much. So I've seen every single robot that played the last couple of games by watching, the first in over like 6 matches to watch like the first 12, 15, 18 matches of every tournament. So I get to see, oh, hey, that one definitely looks like an Everybot. It's got the A-frame that we typically have. It's got the PVC climber. Last year was one that was really easy to pick out. So I like going to track those because it lets us see like there's some concentrated areas where there's a lot of teams that build Everybots, and it lets us see what type of teams are actually using the resources.
You don't sleep much, Ethan, if you're doing that during robotics season.
Not so much.
Just
Well,
saying.
it's been kind of easy in the past couple of seasons because I've only been around partially with the team and I've been off at school. So it's like, oh, I can just go watch some matches. I don't have to actively mentor a team at the same time.
No, I'm guilty of watching matches like every other mentor is, but I mean, watching like the first, I think you said 18 to 20 of every competition.
every
That's
tournament.
a lot.
Yeah.
That's a
Well, I
lot
can
of
play
work.
them at like 2 times speed and just watch
Oh,
the
okay.
little timer to see how long things actually take.
I thought you guys might have said, because you guys are pretty big robot builders, you guys have a lot of robustness in your team, that maybe you guys wrote some type of screen algorithm that just picks out, something.
We're not that smart.
Well, there's an idea. You guys build on that, then it'll help you. Proficient automation. Anytime you can automate things, you just make it better. So it's very interesting. I'm learning a lot. 2018 was my rookie year, and we used your intake, and it worked so well that we were the number 2 robot in our state for doing the handoff of the power cube through the wall.
Yeah, bit of
And
the exchange.
we borrowed that from you, or iterated off it, and we made a little bit of changes. But it was good as a rookie. We are one of the ones that really used your ideas, because starting a team is so hard, and having no mentors with any experience except for me coming in and trying to explain that, you guys helped kick us off. And then we've just gone up from there. So we always look at the Everybot. I know that there's teams that not only build a regular robot, but they build the Everybot just to use it for driving against or learning, certain aspects. So how much work do you guys put into each design? Have you guys calculated it down from the time that the game's released to the time that your Everybot comes out? How many people do you have working on it? And how much actual time do you think, estimate, because I don't think you guys have a spreadsheet. How much work goes into that Everybot designs before you release it?
Yeah, so we've had a core group of around 4 or 5 that, we do Everybot every year. We kind of lead it. We push the strategy and make the strategic decisions on what we're going to do. And then we also have a lot of alumni from our team and local teams that come in for that first week before they go back to college. And they help actually do a lot of the building. So they do most of the building. We're trying to figure out the design, do CAD, stuff like that. And also this year work with 118 during our meeting times as well. So overall, the team is probably 10 to 15 people this year.
It was a big team this year. We had
it's
a lot of
big
help.
team this year. Yeah. And as far as hours, it was probably like 14, 15-hour days at the build space, and then also doing CAD work back at home, or documentation work back at home. I remember, I think my time for the week in 2019. When I did it was like 96 hours at the build space. During the week. So it's a lot of work, but
Is there anything else into that, Ethan, that you can just let us in? Rip the covers off. This is how it happens. It's just pure insanity. You guys have cases of Red Bull and Fritos or something. I mean,
Well, we like to look back at previous years and where we were previous years and just make sure we're on track to get things done on time. Finishing it in the kind of 1 week time span has worked out pretty well. It's kind of a deadline. Lagged a little bit this year because this robot had a lot more integrated into it than it has in previous years, and the geometry on the climber was pretty difficult to get to work reliably with a broad range of manufacturing tolerances. So we went through a couple of iterations of the geometry of the climber and got to one that we think is pretty rock solid. You can be plus or minus, half an inch on each of the dimensions, and it still hangs.
I've got more questions about that specific piece. But so as I've seen everybody kind of gets a little more refined. I love the fact that you guys use the kit parts chassis because it's rock solid, right? We've used that.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
a
the
great
first year we're
product.
not using that. So it's and you can always iterate even off that. You can put Omni wheels on it. You can use high traction, blue nitrite wheels. You can modify anything you want, but at least you guys have a good, starting place. And then that $1,000 budget is great. I think that no matter how restrictive a team has for resources, I think someone can scrape $1,000 together. So I think you guys do really, and your CAD has just got better every year as you guys are documenting. So I remember the documentation of the 2018, right? And I saw the documentation off this one, and it's just exploded. And you guys are just getting more and more impressive. On top of the highly competitive robot that you build every year. Right. I'm a huge fan. Your videos, I may have borrowed a soundtrack from one of your videos for one of ours just to learn it. I just get inspired by your team, and there's a core set of teams that I think that do that, and you guys are one of them. So thank you for doing that for us. So
We've
let's
certainly got to refine it. You mentioned like each year we get better. This previous year it was really fortunate that we were able to pick a robot architecture that was so similar to last year. So like the intake with the two arms that come out and the ladder rail that goes across and the two arms that go out to actually hold the roller is almost exactly identical to the one that we had from the 2020 and 2021 Everybot. So we know where that's going to fail, and we've shared that with teams already.
Well, it's the old adage, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it, right? I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot of robots this year that are a little bit iterative from past seasons, and it makes it a little easier to accomplish building something because we're all rusty, right?
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder if first very specifically picked a game that was kind of similar to last year to make it easier on teams.
I secretly think, and no one's going to tell me I'm right, I secretly think they had two different games and they wanted to see what was going to happen, and they picked the easier of the two. So that means we have a doozy coming next year. I'm just
maybe so.
a football. I don't ever want to have a game where I have to pick up a football or do that. No, I may retire after this year. I'm just joking. I'm around for a while. So let's talk about the lifter, right? Every year we have a lifting game or some portion of the lifting game for years. Now, when your release of your game video was done in conjunction with Canada's first, right? Their stream, and I was there. I was watching it, and when I saw that, jaw dropped. I was like, I didn't even think about that. That is something I would have never thought about. It's passive. There's no pneumatics. There's no motors. It's just bump and go. How did that come to fruition?
Yeah.
We
So
came-
our
we-
first
yeah.
our first thought was, oh, we can just do the 2020 climber that we did, which, we were pretty proud of that one. That was figuring out how to build a climber on an Everybot that was that simple. Yeah, Ethan deserves a lot of credit for that. We were pretty proud of that. And so we knew that was a backup in the back of our heads. And then we had this person join our team this year who his name's Ender. He is a power and propulsion engineer at SpaceX, and he's an alum of 1339 Angelbotics. So he came down, he's friends with us, and he really pushed this concept and worked really hard on this passive climber, because we knew in 2013 that on the pyramid, you could do like a level one hang passively, just drive in, ramp up. And we're like, why can't you just do it on the second one too, and use the first bar to kind of pivot your climber up? And a lot of us have experience in other robotics competitions, Vex and Best. And Ethan and I competed in Best when we were in high school, and you're very limited on motors. You get 4 motors, 4 servos, and so you have to use passive ways of doing things. And so that kind of helped. We knew it was possible from that because we had passive mechanisms on our robot our senior year. And so we built one prototype that was pretty close, and then we built one more, and that was worked out really well, and that was what was on the video, on the robot in the video.
We have a funny, the nomenclature in FIRST is very unique. We have different sayings for everything, right? When I saw the lifter just drive it, hit, and then just hit that mid rung, I went cheesecake. I said, let's go get some cheesecake, because that's cheesecake right there. Now, you guys took it to another level of that. So you worked with Andy Mark, from what I know, and you guys have a kit for that lifter at Andy Mark. Is that correct?
That is correct. So Andy Mark approached us about producing a kit, and we don't work with any specific supplier directly. As far as picking components, we always are trying to pick the cheapest and best components we can for the teams. So and that we post the CAD publicly. People are welcome to go produce any part of Everybot and sell it as a kit to teams. That's what Vex did as well. Vex has an Everybot structure kit, which has all the Vex components and a lot of the box tubing that is in an Everybot, and it actually makes it a little bit cheaper than if you were to go buy stuff at Home Depot and buy it piecemeal from Vex as well. But yes, so Andy Mark has a kit with polycarbonate hooks. We worked with them a little bit to make sure it works as a drop-in replacement for the wood ones we designed. And we have a form on our website and on Chief Delphi and stuff. Our team is donating hooks to hook kits from Andy Mark to teams that need them. And teams are welcome to fill that out. And until our resources are exhausted, we will be sending those out to teams that need them.
That was the next thing I was going to bring up. Is I saw that out on Chief Delphi that you can access this form, and for those teams, I think we have a limited amount of rookie teams this year. But when you look at FIRST, if this is your third season, like you started in 2020, you really are a rookie this year, because maybe you built a robot, but you may never have competed with it, right? Because we got cut short. And then last year was the at-home stuff, which isn't a true build season. You could build all you want, right? There's no, and then record it. And I know we did the best we could for FIRST to do that. There was still, work to be done and stuff like that. But if you were a third year robot or third year team, you're really kind of a rookie team. Like, you may not have a drive team that drives very well yet, which now that you guys have released this, that's one other thing that I think is commendable, that you guys are out there in every way that I could expect or not expect. You guys are trying to help out everyone. And I think that is very commendable. And I'll tell you, the first thing that came into my mind was Woody Flowers. Would have loved to see you guys do this through that forum. And I kind of put in the back of my head ever since we talked to Kyle from the Team Rush, what would Woody do? It's something I keep in the back of my head, especially as a drive coach, because our blood gets flowing. I'm going to go, listen, Woody would say, pull the foot off the accelerator, Pete. You're going to be okay. I'm going to keep that in my head during our competitions this year. But on behalf of all, FIRST, thanks for what you guys did. That is amazing work. So have teams reached out to you and said, listen, we're having problems building this. How can you help us? I know that you have a Discord because I joined it. So that was one of the things that I did as research is joined it and saw what you guys were doing. What other ways are you trying to help teams out this year other than what you've done so far?
Well, the Discord has really been helpful this year. We started that as a forum to allow others to ask questions directly to us, but also ask them in a place where there's a bunch of other teams who are kind of in the same boat, who are building off of the Everybot concept or just building straight from the instructions. So a lot of the time that allows it uh, it allows us to have a community where we don't necessarily have to answer every question directly. So others who have solved these problems, who, you know, there's a lot of problems you run into when you're building one of these robots that even we don't think about. Like we've built it, but we only built one of them, and we built it kind of on a different time scale than everybody else is. So that Discord has really been super helpful. There have been a lot of teams in there who have come in and asked things as simple as, hey, in this one drawing, is this dimension from there or there? Is it from there to there? Hey, how did you drill this hole? To bigger things like, hey, can we change the robot architecture? Do you think this would work? And then, you know, we can give it some thought and say, hey, you know, yeah, we had thought about that too. Maybe this is why we didn't do it, or maybe, yeah, you could go for it if you've got the resources to do it.
Now, you guys, as former students and now mentors, right? You bring the next level of FRC competition. When someone looks at a 118 robot, aside of the Everybot, right? I'm talking about your competitive robot. Some of the things I'm going, it just blows my mind of some of the things that you think about when you guys build your robots. How have you used everything that you took as a student, and now that you're college students finishing your and you're working for NASA, which is another level of holy crap, you're working for NASA, that you guys use what you learned as a student and now apply it as a mentor? Because there are more and more, as teams get older and older, there's more mentors that were previous students. So how do you use that? How do you use that idea and that knowledge that you had and bring that to your students this year? Because Ethan, you said this is the first year you're a full-time mentor. So
Yeah.
how are you approaching this season that way?
Well, it certainly gives me an understanding, you know, since I was a student much more recently than a lot of the other mentors on our team. I can understand how some of the students feel, and a lot of it is like I've known people on other teams who don't get to put out a reveal video with a bright white and gold robot every year, and some of them don't have as positive of an experience in first. So that's what I'm really passionate about with doing Everybot this year and every year especially, is that I want everybody, all students in first, to have a positive experience. And I think one of the big barriers to that sometimes is well, the things that we champion with Everybot, the funding, but also the robot and the strategy that we come up with.
How about
Yeah,
you,
we
Ryan?
we,
Ryan,
we really focus.
go ahead.
Yeah, we really focus on building a robust robot, and a lot of that, you know, from you talk about experience of being a student. I can remember every single time our robot had some malfunction in a match and, you know, got disabled, didn't play. Our bumpers came off on Einstein my senior year, and we take all that experience and we try to build a really robust robot so that, not only that it just doesn't break, but things like bumpers we don't want. We say, oh, well, you should build a full wrap bumper around your robot, not build corner bumpers, because that's more robust and you're less likely to have issues like your bumpers coming off the match and getting disabled. Or here, you should zip tie your battery connector together, because if you sit dead in a match because your battery comes unplugged, it's not very inspiring for the students on that team. So we, like Ethan said, we want to, you know, champion this positive experience for all students in the program. And, you know, it's far more inspirational when you're getting to play the game, score points, than, you know, sit dead for whatever robot related issue your robot has.
So
So you guys work at NASA. Give me one. So you guys, you know, are at NASA, and can you connect the dots a little bit for students out there who may want to intern or co-op and stuff at NASA about what you took from your first experience to NASA and what you bring back, you know, to the teams, you know, on more experiential kind of learning, stuff like that?
Yeah, I can talk about sort of what we bring to NASA. So the group I work in and Ethan has worked in before does a lot of R&D robotics. And a lot of the stuff we've done for NASA work has been because of things we've done on the first team. We have a rover called the Space Exploration Vehicle. It's got 12 wheels, 6-wheel modules, and it's a big swerve drive. That is a swerve drive because the Robonauts had a swerve drive in 2005. And when our group, led by Lucian, our head coach, and he's the chief engineer for mobility at NASA, when NASA was tasked to build a prototype rover and challenge what the conventional thought for a rover is, they built a swerve drive. And the first prototype was built by students who had just graduated from the Robonauts back in 2005 and are now mentors on other teams. So there's a direct pipeline with NASA getting benefit out of the technology we develop. And same with our build space. We have the Robonauts have worked out of Building 9 at the Johnson Space Center. We haven't worked there the last 2 years, but we have our build space there, and that is super valuable to our group at NASA. All the tools we use for the first team and have been purchased for the first team, we use them for work too. And that's a direct way that NASA benefits from what we do. But bringing back to the team, a lot of engineering, especially mechanical design, in my opinion, is knowing what's even out there, right? So we learn about technology that's out there on our NASA projects and bring it to our first team, whether that's different types of bearings or fasteners, or hey, look at this cool thing that's on McMaster. And we do it the same way. It goes, oh, we learned about this in first, and it makes us better robot designers at NASA.
Good answers.
Very good answers. I want to work for NASA. John, you do too, right? I don't think they have a NASA place in Michigan, though. I'm not willing to move. I like snow. But it makes perfect sense
for a week.
It makes perfect sense. So I do have since you use the S word, the swerve word, right? Have you guys ever seen one of your Everybots designed and maybe from the bumpers up taken off and put on a swerve drive? Has that ever happened, Ethan? You've watched every match. You've told us.
We actually have seen it. I remember specifically, it must have been 2018 or 2019? I think Citrus Circuit 1678. They built an Everybot 2019 in the off season. They built one in the off season, and they put the conveyor that we had and the A-frame on top of a swerve drive, and they were swerving around the field, and it was super cool to watch.
Everyone loves a swerve. Everyone loves a swerve. It's the cool thing, right? It's expensive, but unless you have the resources where you can design it in-house and do it that way.
That is a lot of resources.
That is a lot
For
of
those
resources.
of us who run events, especially 2 in a row, it beats the carpet. Swerve.
It's not the swerve, it's the wheels on the swerve that eat the carpet.
Okay, you're right. Get technical on me.
Well, there's 2 engineers right there. I'm not an engineer. I'm an IT guy. So I'm sure they're going to say, John, it depends on the wheels that you're running, because if you're in a Coulson wheel, you're not going to tear the carpet up too bad.
Not as bad. Yeah, those blue nitrile wheels,
exactly,
they will tear up the carpet. It was really funny seeing teams' fields after the at-home challenges last year, because you had to drive the same route over and over again, so you could see in these videos that people put out of oh yeah, they've got almost a hole straight through the carpet when they're going around the barrel racing track.
Maybe you guys can help first come up with some better carpet that's a little more durable. I'm just saying, because every year they have to replace it. So you guys are in build season now. The one thing I wanted to ask about the Everybot is that when you guys look and break down the game, I'm sure you guys break down the game like every other team does. Does the Everybot do it in a different way than you guys would do it for like your 118 robot? Do you guys take a look at it, or you guys just come up with a strategy and say, listen, this is it, this is what we're going to do, and the Everybot is that?
The process we use to develop the Everybot strategy and the process we use to develop the Robonauts 118 strategy is really the same process. It's just that there's a couple of different indicators that we have for which strategy we're going to go for. So obviously on 118, we're striving to win a bunch of blue banners, where we're striving to be competitive at the championship level. But on Everybot, we have a different goal. That goal, as explicitly stated in our mission statement, is to be able to play in the finals at a local tournament. So that's a regional or a district event, and then have a place on an alliance at a championship. So that's a district championship or the championship level event. And so there's different things that a robot has to do to be able to accomplish those goals versus, you know, winning a world championship. But the process is exactly the same, and that starts out with us identifying everything that a robot can do in that year's game in order to accomplish scoring objectives and win matches. We make this massive list of everything a robot can do, and then we start picking out the ones that are obvious that a robot needs to do, you know, like drive, be mobile, pick up cargo, and then it gets into the things that are a little bit more contentious that we have more discussions about, like should a robot in this game score cargo in the high hub? Is that important? At a level to win a world championship, you know, probably. At a level of seating high at a local tournament, absolutely not. You can put 20 pieces of cargo into the low hub and get that ranking point pretty often. So the process is the same, but we pick different things for an Everybot to do, and that's what I'm really passionate about. I think that can make or break a season, whether or not you pick to do the right things. So we think about that very, very heavily. We don't really have a solid answer until, you know, 3 or 4 days into the build. Even, like, we don't know exactly what a robot needs to do. But then we look back at previous games and look at what, for example, the third robot at a championship level event looks like. So we decide what we think a robot needs to be to play that role, to get picked up and be a valuable asset on an alliance. And then we look at what it takes to win local events. And just make sure that we find a happy medium between building a robot that's very competitive at a local event, but also is not strategically defunct at a championship level event.
Makes sense. So Ethan, you guys are like gold, because you two specifically, because of everything you do, but you guys are former students and now mentors. So I can pick all kinds of different questions to ask you, where normally I have either a student or a mentor. So we're in week 4, right? So let's give a little pieces of advice. What should it? Oh no, we're in week 5. I'm sorry, we're in week 5 because today's Monday. What should teams have done right now, or if they haven't reached this level, they should maybe expand their build hours and stuff? What should a average team, because there's so many teams out there, let's say an average team, should they have a rolling chassis already? Should they have everything developed already? Should the CAD be done? Should they already be in driver's practice? Where should a team be on a Monday of week 5?
I think they should definitely have their drivetrain put together, whether that's a kit parts chassis or something custom. And I think they should have a pretty clear path as to what the rest of the robot is, and probably start having parts made by now. On the Robonauts, we have our practice robot is coming to life right now. With it'll probably be driving around in a few days, and then our competition robot follows pretty soon after that. The goal we've always had, and it has always been on our calendar, is by this Saturday. So the Saturday of week 5 is to have dual robots, have both of our robots running. Obviously, if you don't build a practice and competition robot, your goal would be to have your robot running. For us, we have to build a practice robot. With the number of events we do, our competition robot just cannot sustain that much abuse. So we've had that dual robots goal. I've never been with a team when we've made the dual robots goal. Since 2016, we have never had both robots driving around by that day. But it really, when you get to that, for us, it's when we get to that day and that gold robot is not driving, that competition robot's not driving, we're pretty concerned, and we start to, add meetings and get to work. Now with bag day, it is a little different. So our 2020 build season dragged on a lot. That robot, the feeder that got the balls from the intake to the shooter, didn't exist until about 6 days before our first tournament in Plano. So that was a really difficult build season for us. And stuff like that happens sometimes, but ideally, you should have a robot built by the end of build season, even if you don't compete for a couple weeks, because driver practice is so critical. No matter what your drivetrain is, whether it's a swerve or a kit apart chassis or something crazy like mechanism drive, you need to have driver practice to perform successfully. And that's not just being fast around the field and being able to score points. It's we need to figure out the infant mortality of the robot. What's going to break? What do we need to protect? Do we need to drive down the field backwards so that we protect our intake? Or do I need to not run into the wall really hard to square up for this shot? There's all kinds of things you find out with driver practice that you need to fix, or find an operational way to fix, like driving a certain way to protect the robot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Ryan said there. For the average team, you should have a drive base running, but it's really hard to give a solid answer to this question because on 118 we lag behind a lot. We get our robot together pretty late, and there's like we look and see 1678 posting a video 10 days into the build season of their robot running a really competitive autonomous, and we also look at 1690 Orbit from over in Israel, and they post some teasers of their robot playing the game very competitively, and we're like, oh, maybe we should start cutting some parts for our robot. And I'm not saying we're consistently as competitive as those two teams, but each team is very different in the way that they approach the build season, and there's a lot of successful ways that you can go about doing it.
How many kids or how many students and mentors do you guys have on 118?
We have 60 students and about 10 core mentors.
Okay. So, I mean, that has a lot to do with it too. There are teams, I know a team that has over 120 students in it. And I'm like, how do those students touch the robot if you're building one or even two, and then there's teams that only have 5 students, and this year is one of those, I call it an asterisk year. Like, it's not normal. It's not like, and you guys talked about 2020 was a no bag day, right? Or we got rid of the bag, right? And then people were like, oh, we can build all day long, there's no rush to put it in the bag anymore. And then teams found out, and I think you guys just talked about it, where the bag day was good because it gave a dot that you had to hit. And if you didn't have it there, you were really in trouble. And then they got rid of the dot. And sometimes everyone was like, yeah, no bag day. And then they get into week 7 and they're going to week 0s and things aren't done yet, when we were guilty as charged of that as well. So I liked how you guys both laughed when you said Mecanum drive. So is 118 doing a Mecanum drive this year? No,
you gotta wait and see.
Yeah, you gotta wait and see.
I know you guys are very tight-lipped, which is good. I would not be a good host if I didn't try. I have to try. I do it with every team that comes on here. In fact, Spectrum will be on here next week, and I'll be.
Oh well, they don't keep any secrets.
I know.
Yeah, they're open.
They're very forthcoming.
They're open source.
The open alliance is a great thing. I learned about that this year, and I joined my team on it. I think that was great for the kids to have other stuff that they're exposed to. I know there's a couple kids on here, or a couple students that are going to watch this and say, what's a bag day? Like, that blew my mind when you just said that. I was like, wow, there's kids that never had to deal with bag day.
Yeah, but the last 18 months have been what's robotics almost, right?
That's true too.
So these new kids on here are coming into it, and a lot of times they're new mentors and stuff, and they really don't have the history of the team, or a lot of the history, because maybe the mentors don't, right, of the program.
Right.
And yeah, it's I try to talk about some of that for the orientation, because everybody has to go through orientation at Kettering,
yep.
At the First Center. And the other thing is, Pete, what it does, exactly what you were talking about, right? The openness, because every team in there, we want to collaborate. And we need more of that around First, where people share what they're doing, share their CAD, share this, because there are teams out there that have experience, and a team won't be able to use quite that pickup, But if they had the CAD and stuff, they could, they could change things. And then they could much more easily, whether it's 3D printing, whether it's CNC, wooden stuff, make some prototypes and just play. It's, it's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve more Ryans and Ethans in this world.
Yes.
Who are pick this up, carry it themselves, but also, are going to help us, put more rovers out there on Mars and the moon and who knows where.
With the swerve drive.
Some cool stuff. With swerve drive.
It's all about the swerve. I'm gonna make a shirt. I'll make $1 million. I swear. There's plenty of shirts out there like that already.
But I like you. Once you go swerve, you'll never go back.
Yep. Once you go swerve, you'll never go back. Ever. In fact, we're doing swerve for the very first year this year, and we've already learned some hard lessons. Like make sure your wires are wired correctly on your can. Because it doesn't work. But the Open Alliance helped us. Chief Delphi helped us. I said that Chief Delphi helped us. That's, you take Chief Delphi with a little bit of sugar, because sometimes stuff out there, it's good and bad. I'm just saying, it's good and bad.
It gets pretty heated over there.
It does. I think it's a lot better now. But yeah. And I hope teams are ready to go. I mean, I want to ask this question to both you, Ryan and Ethan, as prior students and now mentors. The focus of teams, from what I understand in my experience, is that you want to have the best robust robot week one. Now, I'll put some guidelines around this. I always compete week one. I firmly believe, especially this year, that week one event is the most competitive event where anyone can win it, because there's no meta yet, right? You have drive teams that have never driven on teams that are 20 years old. They have never driven. So if my team can go out there and be as competitive, that's why I like week one. Plus, it's like a bag day. Week one means we have to have something ready for that day. Now that I've said that, do you guys believe, as former students, now mentors, that teams should look at a season as a progression of their robot? Or should the robot be the same way for the whole season? What do you guys think?
Or let me rephrase this as what you
As he froze.
guys might, is it Kaizen, right? Kaizen, constant improvement.
Yes.
Or how do yeah.
So Ryan, you first. I'm very curious to know what you say.
Yeah, so absolutely, you should improve your robot through the season if you have the resources to do so. You're going to go to that first tournament, especially teams who are in districts. If you're in a regional system and you can only go to one tournament, I mean, that's your one shot unless you qualify for championships, right? But especially in districts, I mean, you're going to go there, you're going to learn something, whether that it's going to be something on your robot needs to be a little more robust, or it could be lighter so you can add this extra thing. Like, think about 2020. Having a spinner mechanism on your robot wasn't necessary at your first event. We went to Plano, we had it on our robot, it didn't work. But then as the event progressed, even at the event, we worked on the software and we had it in finals. So and a lot of teams wouldn't have needed that until week 3 or 4 in their region, because the game progresses, the level of play gets higher and higher and higher, and certain things in certain games you just don't need until later on in the season. And yeah, you'll find something that needs to be more robust, or you'll see that other team that you played with, you played against, that beat you, that you beat. And you're like, their intake's a little better because they use these wheels. And yeah, absolutely go for upgrading that if you have the resources to do so. And we have these 3 pillars on the Robonauts that we always talk about. We have robot, strategy, and execution. If we go into our first event and we're at 80% on all 3 of those, we're doing good. But we need to, by championship, get to 95, 99% on all of those. to really be competitive. And so we'll be making upgrades on our robot. I promise you, there'll be something that we're going to upgrade this year. And very rarely does the robot that plays at championships look exactly like the robot that's in our reveal video. Stuff comes off, stuff gets added, stuff comes off again. And that's just how we work. But that robot strategy and execution, this kind of comes into the Everybot strategy. You can make up for lacking in one of those with good strategy and good execution, which Ethan can talk about that with Texas Cup. We competed with our Everybot there.
So what is your response, Ethan?
Yeah, so again, there's obviously a very broad spectrum of the way teams approach the competition season, but it is ultimately an engineering challenge, and engineering is iterative. So especially without the bag, you should definitely be making improvements to your robot, unless you come out with a perfect robot in week 1, like 2056. Then maybe you can just keep doing the same thing every week and win a championship.
We've had a lot of high-powered teams referenced in this episode.
Well, you got to look at the good ones and copy what you can from what makes them successful.
Yeah. The only one that I haven't heard yet is 254. Yet.
They're too good to even mention.
I mean, so I think that I can't wait to see what week 1 looks like. I really can't. I think it's going to be so cool to see robotics again return in person to something that may be what it looked like a couple years ago. But like I said, I don't think we'll see that fully to maybe next season. And those teams come back and rejuvenate themselves. Maybe they learned from something in COVID that inspires them to do better. I'm going to borrow the 3 pillars thing at my team meeting tomorrow, because that's a pretty good, I like that reference. I might throw a 4th pillar in there. I like square. So
Squares.
yeah, like our robots, well,
Yeah.
unless
on the note of those 3 pillars, Ryan had mentioned that we took our Everybot to the Texas Cup this past year, and we got to compete with it. That was, I mean, it was a low goal scoring robot, but we were still the 3rd overall pick at the tournament. So that was one where maybe we had a robot that was at 75%, but I would say our strategy and execution was up at 95%. We had a driver who was just on fire, stuffing cargo or fuel cells into the low goal, scoring, up to 20 pretty often, going and doing the control panel every single match. We had a robot that was not as capable as the high goal scoring robots, but we were still scoring just as many points. And we were, I would say, even more of a valuable asset on an alliance than some of the slower high goal scoring robots.
And the students had fun and learned, right?
Yep.
And were engaged.
Yeah. That was actually a really fun tournament because we had a bunch of juniors on the team who obviously they hadn't really gotten to compete in that sort of a role before. So we had a bunch of juniors who are now seniors this year. They got to step up and really own that robot as their own. They added some upgrades and they drove the heck out of it. They drove that thing for hours and hours and hours. And they fixed it when it broke. And that tournament was, I think, a great experience for them to build up to this year, because now they're the seniors. Now they're the leaders on the team.
That's cool. That's cool.
That's iteration right there, right?
Yep.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on board with us today. I've learned a lot from you. I try to learn something every day, even as a mentor, because the day that you stop learning is the day you're dead, pretty much. I mean, that's life. So, and I can't wait to see you guys, see what your robot comes out. You guys always have pretty good release videos, so I'm waiting with bated breath to see that. Thank you for everything that you've done with the Everybot for us for this season. I probably will task my kids, because we have a kit in a kit of parts chassis, because we built the Swerve, to have them go build that maybe between weeks 1 and 4 or weeks 1 and 5 if we have a perfect robot, which we won't. I'm just saying, well, we're going to iterate just like you guys said we would. But thank you for coming on board. Now, as you guys sign out, I always like to ask the hardest question at the end, right? Now, you guys talked about high shooting robots. My prediction is that the ones that are on Einstein this year, even though it's in Houston and not Detroit, I'm a little hurt about that, but it's going to happen, is that I think we will see more proficient low goal scorers than high at all, specifically for this game because of the geometry and the shooting up in the top and watching teams shoot right in the top and watch that wheel kick that ball right back out. Our team is dedicated to the low because we can't kick the ball out that easily out of the low. So
It comes out faster.
it comes out. Yeah.
It comes out faster, you get it back quicker. Yep.
That's true.
That's it. Yeah. Exactly.
And you don't have to worry about breaking any rules by touching the ball before it hits the ground and any of that other happy hoopla stuff. So,
Yeah.
So Ryan, as you sign out, tell us again your full name. Tell us what you think the winning medal will be for week 1.
Okay, so I'm Ryan Stockton. So for week 1, I think there will be low goal scorers winning week 1 tournaments. I do not agree that Einstein will have some be led by low goal scorers, but there'll absolutely be some low goal scorers winning week 1 tournaments, and probably some Everybot.
We hope to see some Everybot out there.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool. On Einstein, I want to see it on a swerve drive. Ethan, you're up next.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. So I would again, I'm Ethan Reed. Thank you for having us. And I believe that this year is going to be probably the first year in which there is more than one alliance on Einstein that has a first or a second robot on the alliance that is low goal focused. So I do think there's going to be low goalers on Einstein. And at week 1, I think the vast majority of tournaments are going to be won by alliances that have at least one robot that is low goal only, and then maybe another robot that does high goal as well. And I think that has probably never happened before in at least the time that I've been in first. Like, the low goal has been valuable for different reasons, but maybe only in 2016 was it as valuable as this, such that you could get those ranking points and seed really high just by putting barrels in the low goal.
And ranking points are gold, at least until playoffs.
Yeah,
because you don't have to be the best robot. You just got to pick the best robot.
That's right.
I want to thank you guys. Really appreciate you taking your time and coming on here. And hopefully we can maybe reach out to you later on in the season and get your thoughts on what you've seen so far, right? Maybe after week 1 or 2 or something like that. And see if things are what you think are the same. And maybe we'll get more input onto your bot and why you did what you did. Okay, and how the thought process came. Because that's, to me, what's a lot of the important, and people may be listening to this. What are the thought process, and how do we have to learn how to do things a little better and a little bit more disciplined, to be able to, be consistent.
And when do you guys compete?
We compete week 2 at Channelview. We didn't get into a week 1 this year. We love playing week 1s, like you said, but we're competing week 2 Channelview. So after that, I'm sure we're going to have completely different views on how this game should be played.
Yeah. Can't wait to ask that question. We'll talk to you guys around week 3 or 4.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming on board.
Great,
Thank you for what you do for First. I greatly appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
You guys were great.
Yeah,
you guys were really good.
Have a great week.
You too.